Hello, everyone. Good morning and good afternoon. Thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Rigo Villa, Community Manager on the Cisco Learning Network, and I'll be your host for this webinar. In today's session, we will be covering mobile device management with ISE with our speaker and presenter, Tim Beebe. But before we get started, I wanted to share a couple of quick housekeeping notes. First, I do want to let our attendees know that our presenters are currently working from home, so if we do run into any technical issues during the webinar, we'll do our very best to resolve it as soon as possible. So we just want to thank you in advance for your patience and understanding. Next, if you have any questions during the session, we ask that you please post them in the question and answer panel, as that would help our panelists keep track of all of the questions and would also allow them to provide you with a much more timely response. Also, if you experience any audio issues during the live presentation, I do recommend using the call-in telephone number that I'm going to be posting in the chat window here in just a moment. And at the end of this webinar, you're going to get a pop-up survey with a couple of questions about today's presentation. And we would really appreciate it if you can just take a moment to fill it out and just share with us any thoughts or feedback that you may have. I also want to let our attendees know that this session will be recorded and it will be available for on-demand viewing within approximately 5 business days after today. And I'll be sure to post some more information on that in the chat window a little bit later on. And last but not least, we will be launching a couple of poll questions throughout this presentation. And when we are ready to launch one of these polls, we will announce it live, and then you will see it pop up on your webinar event screen. And then that's when you'll have an opportunity to submit your answers. So we hope that you all can participate. And with all that said, I'm now going to turn it over to our presenter to kick off the webinar for today. So Tim, if you're ready, please take it away.
All right, thank you, Rigo. So as Rigo had mentioned, my name is Tim Beebe, and today we'll be covering an ISE webinar on mobile device management within Identity Services Engine. My role in Cisco is a customer success specialist in the customer experience organization. I've been working on ISE for about 6 years and have seen the ups and downs with MDM over the years, so hopefully this will be a good session to get everybody more familiar with the feature in ISE. I think Rigo covered a little bit of this, but just make sure if you're asking questions that you drop those in the Q&A panel instead of the chat panel. That'll make sure that all of our panelists are able to quickly answer your questions via text. Okay, starting off, Rigo will cover polling question number 1. Just a general question, what's the version of ISE currently in your production environment? Is it still in the 1.x train? Are we on the 2.1, 2.2, 2.3 trains, 2.4, newer versions 2.6 or 2.7, or the latest and greatest on 3.0? You should have roughly a minute or two to answer that question in, and we will continue on. Okay, and again, just a general overview. Today we're going to be talking about how ISE can be the overall solution for challenges when employees want to access your corporate network using their own personal mobile devices. Okay, and in today's conversation, we'll be starting with just with a general overview of what Identity Services Engine, or ISE, is. We'll go more in depth into the mobile device management and EMM features. We'll talk a little bit about integration, and then we'll be covering a brief demo of the feature. Again, with Cisco ISE, we're going to go through a general overview, how ISE can work and be the solution for your organization for access control, as well as provide context awareness into what is actually on your network. Okay, just a general access control overview. ISE is the central point in the network and basically a gatekeeper for all of these various devices that are coming onto your networks, whether these are corporate managed 802.1x devices, printers, other devices that are authenticating via MAB, guest services, VPN users, IoT devices. ISE can handle network access for just about all of these devices. addition to general network access, we have a number of additional features built in to provide certificate services, to provide integration with external identity sources across the board, whether that's an on-premises Active Directory. In 3.0, we've got a little bit of integration with Azure Active Directory via ROPC. We can use SQL databases and other ODBC connectors. We can use LDAP. Almost limitless on what you can do within ISE to manage authentications and authorizations into your network. And then specific for today's session, we can also do that integration into MDM vendors, whether they're Cisco or third party, to provide better visibility and control over basically mobile phones, mobile devices that are coming into your network. Okay, and then just a general plug again for ISE and how ISE can help with context awareness into your environment. Traditionally, all we would be looking at, generally speaking, when something's coming onto our network is just an IP address, maybe a MAC address, but we don't really know much else about the device. Integrating ISE into your deployment, we get a ton of additional contextual awareness as far as who's on the network. So rather than just that IP address on the left, that 192.168.2.101, suddenly we know that Bob is the user that logged into this device. It's a Windows 10 device managed on the corporate network. We know when they came in. We know where that user is. We know their authentication mechanism and medium. So we know this is a wireless authentication. We can also use advanced features like posture or app visibility to figure out exactly what applications are running on that device, as well as if that device is in compliance with latest patches. And then we can also see additional information from MDN vendors like a UUID, et cetera, whether this device is jailbroken, whether it's in compliance with the MDM policies. And with all of that contextual information, we can then figure out if this user should be authorized completely across the network, or if they should be limited down to a small subset of network resources. Okay, so moving on from the general ISE overview, we'll jump into the actual mobile device management feature within ISE. To give a, general overview, we'll talk about a few of the challenges with mobile device management, or that might present in your ISE implementation or your network enterprise implementation, and how ISE can be used as the solution for that. So just a general overview of the mobile device management feature. This allows integration with ultimately, again, a Cisco product like Meraki or a third-party product like Microsoft Intune, Azure, AirWatch, things of that nature. MobileIron was a frequently used vendor as well, to manage personal devices or even company-owned iPhones, iPads, Android devices, et cetera, to allow them to access into your network, to do compliance reviews of those to make sure that these devices haven't been jailbroken, that these devices haven't been compromised in some other way, and that they're maybe running the latest OS or the latest approved OS for your environment. Within ISE, we have to go through a specific process to discover these devices. There are many different ways to do it, but just in general, step one is going to be registering this device within ISE, whether we do that via a redirect or just polling the MDM directly. Step two, we're trying to figure out what sort of internet access we want to give to this device. We're checking the MDM response after ISE queries it for those specific attributes, again, whether it's compliant, non-compliant, et cetera, jailbroken, and then we can take those attributes and decide if we're going to allow full corporate access or not. And you have multiple different responses that you can give. So if a device is non-compliant, we can drop it into a quarantine VLAN to allow it to update its policy, update its OS, et cetera. We can deny access outright, or we can just allow that full corporate access. Okay, just to talk about a few of the general challenges with mobile device management that a lot of customers have faced. In a very, very mobile-centric world that we live in, just about everybody walking off the street has a highly advanced computer sitting in their pocket. whether, again, that's an iPhone as an Apple device or an Android device. In either case, most people walking off the street into an organization would love to be able to use the corporate Wi-Fi so they don't have to use up their data plans. So that creates a unique challenge for organizations on how they want to provide that access. A lot of times, again, these devices are not going to be managed by the corporation. So trying to figure out a way to allow users to use their own mobile devices, but at the same time maintain that security posture and security compliance that you want in an enterprise network, that's where it becomes very tricky. So ultimately, the solution that ISE presents is via integration with those partners, providing a single pane of glass for network access control and management at a certain level of those mobile devices that are coming off the street. And again, this is going to be if the company is purchasing a large number of iPhones or Android devices to provide to their end users, or if users are bringing their own devices off the street. So again, for that first challenge, we want to allow corporate network or data access for personal and corporate mobile devices. So basically, the solution here is to set up ISE policy and MDM policies to accomplish that goal. So again, as I mentioned earlier, we've got our EMM or our MDM policies out there. A user connects to a wireless network on one of those devices. That network device processing the wireless access is going to send a request up to ISE, and then ISE is going to have certain policies in place to basically say if this is jailbroken or if this is non-compliant, et cetera. So for the example on the screen, if it's jailbroken and the result is no, and the pin lock is set, then we're going to mark that compliant and give full network access. Next challenge up was a little bit of visibility around those personally or corporate-owned devices, and basically management of those, right? So if we figure out from our context visibility in ISE, now we have a general overview via that single pane of glass of what the MAC address is, what the IP address is, who the username was, if it has a host name applied or if it's something generic, where it's coming from, what it profiled as. In addition to that context visibility, now we have, with MDM integration, the ability to go in and perform an MDM action, whether we're going to wipe that device of just the corporate applications. So that's going to be our corporate wipe option. If we're going to full wipe the device, if we're going to pin lock the device, or if we're going to try and refresh the information that we know about that device from the MDM partner. For the end user, ISE also provides via the My Devices portal a way to manage their MDM devices. So if you don't have a front-end, basically website that end users can go to manage their personal devices, or if maybe they've lost their iPhone, for example, and they need a way to just quickly come in here and wipe it or pin lock it, et cetera, until they can use Find My iPhone to find it. ISE can provide that web front end for the user to come in, log in with their AD account, and then see which specific devices are registered to themselves, and then they have almost the same MDM management options on their personal device. So they can come in quickly, mark this device lost, stolen. They can edit the device information. They can pin lock it. They can full wipe it just to make sure that none of their personal information gets out. Also, if they're going to be replacing their device, they can just unenroll it from the MDM, and then your MDM administrators don't have to go through and periodically ask if users still have their own devices or not. Okay, jumping up to polling question number 2, I'll pass this on to Rigo for a quick moment.
Awesome, thank you, Tim. All right, so, and actually, before we move ahead with the next poll question, I'll just take a brief moment to share the results of poll number 1. And for that previous question, we asked, what's the version of ISE in your production? And I see here that the top answer is version 2.6, 2.7, so that got the majority vote. And then for the next top answer, the results show participants on version 2.4. And then now for our next question, in poll number 2, we'd like to know which EMM/MDM product you use. And just like the other question, you can see the answer options on your screen there. You have 6 answers to choose from. And as soon as the official poll opens up on your screen, please do take a moment to submit your answers. So thanks everybody, and back to you, Tim.
All right, thank you. It's good to hear that the vast majority of responses were on the later versions of 2.x. I know it was mentioned early in the slides, but some of our older versions are going end of life very quickly. Okay, so moving forward from just the general MDM feature overview within ISE, we'll move into the actual integration, talk about some of the supported vendors, the actual MDM flow, licensing requirements, and then some of the integration with Cisco Meraki. Okay, just in general, MDM support within ISE, we have a broad range of support, whether that's going to be Apple iDevices, Android devices, MacBooks, Windows OS devices, as well as Chrome OS. We run everything as far as the integration through multiple different levels, right? So we can have just a general redirect into an MDM portal, which will send a request over to whatever our configured MDM server is, asking for information about the device. We can also use built-in tools inside of ISE itself as a lower level MDM solution to actually manage the devices within ISE, and that's our BYOD feature. With that, we can do native supplicant cert provisioning and then manage the devices that way to provide a little bit more secure access. A great site to check out as far as whether or not your specific vendors are supported in the ISE ecosystem is the link we've got down at the bottom of the page, that cisco.com/go/CSTA. You can search pretty much any vendor across the board, and then if we have any integration with them, it will be listed there and it'll tell you exactly what it is. And that's not specific only to ISE. You can also see other products out there like Firepower, StealthWatch, and a number of our cloud products that have integrations with third-party partners. So just to go in general over the ISE and MDM configuration flow, fairly simple process. A lot of times we're already going to have some sort of network access device configured inside of ISE. A lot of times for bring your own device scenarios or these mobile device management scenarios, that's going to be a WLC or maybe a third-party controller, because this is designed primarily for wireless. Our next step is actually adding the MDM server into ISE. With that, we basically just need to know IP or FQDN of the MDM server. We have to know which ports it's listening on, and then we have to make sure that all the certificate exchanges between those two are good. So the ISE Trust Store needs to make sure it's got the certificates of the MDM vendor, and then the MDM vendor needs to make sure that it trusts anything coming from ISE as well. Next up, we're actually going to configure the NAD or the WLC here to host an SSID, whether that's a single SSID or dual SSID is all going to depend on which sort of flow you're going through, whether we're using ISE for registration or if the MDM device or MDM product is already managing these SSIDs for customers. There's not a lot else that needs to be done there other than just setting up the SSID. And then finally, we're going to configure our ISE policies and our MDM policies to give the resultant access that we desire. So from the mobile device enrollment flow, this is going to be what the customer or the end user is actually seeing. If we're using ISE for redirection, we're going to send them to, in the BYOD scenario, a BYOD portal to add their personal device to a registered device endpoint group. That's going to kick off a supplicant provisioning wizard that's going to actually send down the network settings that we want for this specific SSID that was created on our WLC. That's going to tell the device exactly how it needs to authenticate in, whether that's going to be EAP-TLS or maybe a PEEP MS Chat v2 network for username and password logins. As part of that flow, we're also going to be installing the certificates. So the ISE EAP certificate will be installed on that actual endpoint into the trust store. And then if we're providing a certificate for that device to authenticate over EAP-TLS, we're also going to be installing that user certificate into the device trust store as well. And then next up, we're going to be checking the actual MDM compliance side to go out to the MDM server to see, is this MAC address or is this UUID existent in the MDM instance? If yes, we're just going to get back whatever information is already known about that. If not, we can continue on with actually registering that device into MDM. Okay, so just to quickly talk about the license requirements for our ISE MDM integration. In 2.6, 2.7, and prior, we supported both smart licensing and classic licensing. To use the full feature suite, we need Base Plus and Apex here. Base license is going to cover our general radius authentication that comes into ISE. The Plus license, if you're using the BYOD feature, is going to come into play. And then the Apex feature for the actual MDM integration for us to go out and ask the MDM vendor for the device compliance information. In 3.x, as some of you may already know if you've been to one of the prior webinars on the 3.x changes specifically around licensing, 3.x is smart licensing only, and in the latest patch we're going to be supporting satellite licensing there as well for air-gapped environments that had not been able to previously move up on the 3.0 base version. But in that, after the change in names, from Base Plus and Apex to Essentials, Advanced, and Premier, the MDM feature is covered under the Premier, and with the new way that we count licenses, you only need the highest level of license that's used for the feature. So in this case, we've got Premier on there. Okay, just a quick plug on the Cisco Meraki Systems Manager, which is basically an enterprise mobility management or mobile device management solution. This solution allows you to pre-enroll devices or dynamically add additional users as they come onto your network. It allows basically wireless and VPN connectivity settings for those mobile devices. It gives you the ability to monitor but also secure everything coming onto your wireless network. So it's a cloud-based MDM. This is offered by Cisco if you don't already have it, but it's an alternative to some of the other vendors that are out there. Okay, so continuing on with the general integration, this is not covering the addition of our network access device, but for the actual integration of the MDM server, basically we come across administration, network resources, MDM servers, and we click the add button. This slide did not pop up. Once the slide comes up, it's basically just a form to fill out, again, with just the host name of our MDM vendor, what port we're going across on, username and password, or token settings if required for that integration. And then we basically click save. The PAN at the time is going to reach out to make sure that it can actually connect to the MDM vendor. And if everything is returned back successfully, at that point, we're going to get back a response, and then this is now usable within ISE. And then from there, we actually move into the provisioning of the authorization policies to check, if it's the MDM server name that we've mentioned here and the device is compliant, then we're going to continue on. If it's the MDM server name and the device is non-compliant, maybe we have a different response that we're going to give out for that one.
Hey, Tim, sorry, I'm not sure if we might have lost your audio there. Tim, if you're speaking, sorry, we are not able to hear you. And for our audience, sorry about that. Please bear with us for just a moment until we can get Tim's audio back. Thank you so much.
Let's check for a minute, Rigo, or else I can jump on.
Sure, sounds good. Thank you, Suresh.
Yeah.
And for our audience, just a reminder, if you have any questions about the what you've seen so far in the presentation, feel free to just post it in the question and answer panel. And then we have an amazing list of panelists who are will be there ready to answer your questions. So if you do have something that you'd like to address, please feel free to post it in the Q&A panel, and one of our wonderful panelists will be ready to assist you. All right, and once again, thank you to our audience for your patience here. Actually, Suresh, would you like to take over until Tim can resolve
Yeah, sure.
his technical issues? Yeah, we can
Yeah,
just move
just make me
ahead.
presenter. Yeah.
Okay, all right. And once again, thank you to our audience for your patience, and sorry about the inconvenience here. We'll resume the presentation here in just one moment.
If you can make me presenter. Yeah. Thank you.
And will you be sharing, Suresh, or do you want me to just?
Yes, yes.
Okay, got it.
Okay. So yeah, I think Tim was explaining about adding MDM server to ISE, right? If you guys remember the flow in the previous slide where he was mentioning about the flow. I mean, it's not supposed to be everyone's supposed to do in the same flow, but it's like adding the MDM, then adding the network access device like controller, right? And then configuring the policies, something like that. So this is ICE 3.0. Let's quickly check the menus where we can start doing this stuff. If I go to administration and under external MDM, so I already integrated the Meraki to ICE. You can see the details here. If I edit, basically it asks for the authentication type, the host IP, it can be FQDN or the IP address. Mostly it will be the FQDN. Then the port. These two are like to authenticate securely to build a communication between IS and MDM for API calls, right? So username and password. And then rest of them are kept default, right? And once we test the connectivity, it should be showing like successful. Then we are good with the MDM some integration side. So once we integrate the MDM and enable it, at that time only you are going to see the attributes what we shown on the slide, like the phone log, the jailbroken, all those conditions will be available on the authorization policy. What I mean actually, if I quickly go back to the policy set and policies, if I expand this, right? So these are like the MDM attributes that we use as conditions in the authorization, like MDM device registration, MDM device compliant status, right? So these will be available right after you integrate either at least one of the MDM server and enabling it. Okay, so after that, I will quickly show. We already had a WLC added here, right? It's Cisco's 9800. You can see. So this is where our endpoints are getting connected, and they will be going through the flow that I'm going to show you with the policy sets. So here we have two policy set. For the lab, I'm just using the wireless, and there is a default as well. Very generic condition to match the overall traffic with this policy set. If the network IP is, I mean, network IP of the WLC is so and so, then I'm just, going through the policies under it, right? So under authentication, map.1x both are mentioned, and default is deny. And so if I expand authorization policies, okay, hope you can see they're a little bit smaller in font, but yeah. So we have multiple rules created here, like MDM registered, non-compliant, BOID, onboarding, and MDM registration. And this is not related to the current topic, but we have guest access and guest redirect. So how the overall flow looks like, right? When a user connects his own personal device, right? So he normally comes through the first thing is the authentication, right? So in the authentication, here initially we are um, using the .1x or maybe map, right? It depends on what methodology and what way you are going to onboard them. It can be dual SSID or single SSID, right? So if it is dual SSID method, we are mostly using the guest SSID, right? That SSID will be used to onboard the personal device. When we say onboarding, nothing but we are going to provide the profile that is required to connect to the secure SSID, and we are going to provide the certificate through BYOD, right? So those will be done through guest. But in our flow, we will be using the secure way of connecting. Maybe we can use this as well. But the flow, I just want to explain here, like initially when they connect, right? So they won't be matching here because they're not yet registered with the MDM, right? And you can see we have a condition like endpoint logical profile, which equals to mobile devices, right? So this is a predefined logical profile of the endpoints where all the smartphones or mobile devices are already there, like Android, iOS, BlackBerry, all those devices. And since any one of these conditions is not satisfying initially for a personal onboarding device, so it will not match here, then even not here as well, because here we are creating something like if the registration is already done with the MDM, so it will not also match there. But when it comes to here, right, initially we are asking, we are trying to onboard them through the secure wireless using username and password, right? And if they are using any one of these logical device like mobile device, and if they are already not BOI registered, so this condition will satisfy. So once they are satisfied here, we are simply redirecting them to the BOID onboarding. So with the onboarding, I just explained in the guest redirection port, methodology, right? It's the same process there, right? So I will show the user experience right after the policy once you go through the policies. So they will go through the onboarding policies. They will get the certificates, the profile required for the secure connectivity. Once the onboarding is done, there will be a COA, and they will come back again to the policy. The flow, right? So this time, again, when they come back, the authentication is already there. The authorization here, it will not match for the registered because they are not yet registered with MDM. Again, this is also not satisfied because they are not yet registered here. I mean, these conditions can be anything relevant to your use case or requirement, but for the demo purpose, we created this, right? And the onboarding stuff is already done. It will not match here. Then when it comes to this policy, it says the registration with MDM is equals to unregistered, means if it is not registered, and it's a secure way of connecting like 8.1x, right? Then it will match here. So it's all happens in milliseconds, right? So once the onboarding is done, they will match the MDM registration process. They will be redirected to the MDM registration. If they already not enrolled registered, they will be sent to onboarding, MDM enrollment. So once they enrolled, right, with the solution, which is Meraki SM here, so now they will match either one of these two conditions. Either they are, they already registered now, if they are compliant, and if the user is someone who is using the employee credentials, a group of employee, one of the user from the employee group, and if they are using Meraki MDM, right? I think one of the attendee was asking that can we use multiple MDM? Yes, we can use, but we need to use this condition as the MDM server name equals to the exact name, right? What you actually added there early in the previous step. But you cannot match. It's not supported to match or create two MDM servers in each, in a single authorization policy. So you need to classify how you want to for which MDM you want to send, which users, or maybe based on classification, any kind of classification, user wise or location wise, right? So you need to classify, and you can use multiple MDMs like that. So yeah, here again it will satisfy because he onboarded Meraki MDM and he is using something, he or she using the mobile device. So if if the endpoint is compliant, then they will be given full access or permit something, right? If they are non-compliant, something like only internet, right? We want to provide just for use case. So this is the overall how the flow will be for onboarding the mobile devices, right? And how they go through the BOID onboarding, and right after that, the MDM enrollment. Let me quickly jump onto the user experience slide, right? Let's share it. Okay, so here, as I mentioned, right, we are going to use, I'm going to show you how the user experience will be if it's a single SSID BOD process, right? So we have multiple ways, as I said, single and dual. So here we are using the single to show you how the user experience will be. So initially, there will be only one SSID for onboarding and connecting to the overall corporate network, right? So he or she connects to the secure, which is the corporate SSID, provide the username password. It can be AD or local, right? Or even Azure AD in the cloud as well. So then initially, since the overall configuration is done for onboarding the device, right? So the BOD portal will kick in. So ISE has the capability to profile the devices. It will profile you as an Android. If it is not, and you can mention which type of device it is, right? Then you give the name. This is to onboard your device, right? And then it will ask to install the NSA, which is our app, right? To provide you or provision you the profiles and the certificates. Here it is providing you the certificate that is required for you to securely connect or identify yourself to securely connect to the network. So then again, it applied the Wi-Fi as well. If you are asking them to connect to the other, the new way of connecting to the network like EPTL or something like that, right? Using certificates. So there it will show that. So once you successfully implement, it says you are connected to the secure, which is the SSID name. So after this, right? So this is where the MDM kicks in. So again, they will be already connected to secure, right? Once you try to access something, like once you generate any traffic, right, using your device, it will be redirected to the enrollment. Initially, if you are not enrolled, right, that's the process. Then you need to log in, right, with your credentials for the MDM enrollment. So here it will be a work profile in terms of the Meraki MDM solution. It will also enable device administration so that the MDM solution can control the particular device. That's the overall intention, right? We want to securely onboard or provide network and control the devices, right? So this is how it looks like. It will ask for all the permissions. If you are okay and you want to give the permission, you simply need to click active, right? So once you click on active, then it will take over the device with all those permissions you provided. Nothing but MDM enrollment, right? Once, if you agree, only you are going to be onboarded and you will be the secure corporate access, right? So once the onboarding is done, then you are good to connect to your original network resource, whatever it can be public IP or maybe internal resources, if your admin allowed you to connect to that, right? So that's how the user experience will be. So just on the operations side, right, how the live logs will look like. Initially, it will be either PIP or MS chat, right, using your username password. Then during the onboarding process, you will get the certificate, right, and the net Wi-Fi required settings as well. Uh, that will uh, that will be used to connect to the SSID securely using the certificates. So after that, you will be onboarded through the or enrolled through the um, NDM solution. Finally, you will get either a corporate access or full access based on the requirement. So we did mention that the device portal is the place where the users can um, log in and they can manage their own devices. It's just not the admin, right? Users can also manage their devices. So when I say manage, right, after your onboarding, you will see all the devices you already enrolled or onboarded. And if there is a situation like the device was stolen, right? If you select the device and I mean just check the stolen as an option there, right? Then what happens in the background is because you are securely connected to the network using certificates, which is provided by the ISE in general, but because ISE has that capability to do that, you can use your own PK as well. But what happens in the backend, it will just simply revoke your certificate so that you won't be able to, I mean, the device cannot connect to the network anymore. So MAC randomization, we are seeing a lot of questions in the Q&A, maybe a couple of them, right? How the ICE can deal with MAC randomization, right? So this is how the overview of MAC randomization on different mobile devices like Windows, Android, right? So can be pair SSID maybe on global settings. Basically, it is like a providing privacy or security to a device by dynamically changing the IP addresses, right? So, but this can be an issue when we providing all the whole process of onboarding and enrollment is based on MAC address, which is unique for each and every end device, right? So if it is dynamic in nature, how we are tracking that and how we are dealing that issue. So we're just putting that in a uh, scenario, right? So if in case of dual SSID flow, if you remember, there will be two SSIDs. Initially, the end device or user will use the open SSID, like guest SSID, just to connect and onboard his device, right? To get all the requirements he needed to securely connect to the secure SSID, right? Which has more access, can grant more access. So maybe initially when he connected to the open SSID, he had some MAC address, right? And when he connects to the secure SSID after the onboarding, right, the device can randomize the MAC address to something new. So since we use these conditions in the authorization, like device onboarded or registration is done, something like that as a matching condition to provide the network access, right? Now the endpoint is no more having that a registered tag, right, attached to the previous MAC address, since it's coming with a new MAC address. This is an issue for the whole process, right? So again, yeah, the certificate itself is generated based on the MAC address, right? Uh, on the BOID onboarding process. Now the identity completely changed. So this is an issue for overall the solution. So how we can do provide a solution for that, right? So the way is we can detect the MAC addresses which are random MAC addresses, right? I mean randomization of MAC address, we can say. So basically, as per this the first octet, right? If the first octet is something like 26AE, if it ends with 26AE, any one of these, so we identify, right, them as a randomized MAC addresses based on the overall theory here, right? Like if it is a 0 in the second bit, right, it's a globally unique, or if it is 1, then it is locally administered, right? So based on this, these are some examples of MAC address 26AE, first octet, second bit, right? So these are the complete combinations, right? You can see all the second bit of the first octet is either 2 or 6 or A or E. So with this, we can create a regular expression, right, on the Cisco, I mean ISE, as one of the authorization condition. So if we see any one of these MAC addresses, then we can simply identify that the endpoint is using randomized MAC address, right? So that is good. We are identifying then what we are going to do with that, right? So these are the options for you. Since the MAC randomization is completely, is not allowing us to do the overall solution, right? Because the overall process depends on the MAC address, like certificates or the overall context of the endpoint. So if you are good with that, either you can start providing any one of these, either simply deny the access, or you can provide instruction, or maybe short session timeout, or simply permit the access based on if you saw this is a randomization of the MAC address, then permit access. But in general, what we are going to do here, right? Let's see the demo. What ICE can do is one of the options available. So yeah, the endpoint connected and providing username and password. Okay, it's got connected. It says, right? So this is what we can send to the endpoints. Your device is using random MAC address. So while the onboard process is going on, right, in the next step, then it will change the MAC address when it shares switching between the SSIDs, right, or connectivity or the overall flow because of the COA, right? So there you can send a notification or maybe a pop-up, something like, it's like one more portal of redirection, right? You can provide all the meaningful information and instructions to the end user saying that you are using random MAC addresses. Make sure you are disabling that to get the network access, right? So such kind of instructions we can send. So this is more information on the support information. You can send it, right? Then the user can simply go on to the network settings and you can disable that and use the device MAC address. Now this time he connected and he is good to go through the what you want to access, right? So this is one way of doing the overall uh, dealing the MAC randomization. Again, if you go back and select that, you will see the same the notification says there is a pop-up. Then once you go there, you will see the same instructions over there. That is so far we have on the MAC randomization, how we detect and how we use the overall the subset of identified MAC addresses and using the regex. Okay, so some key points to remember. So context, that's the first, first slide we almost first slide we started and explained how important it is to use the overall context, right, to get the overall context of the endpoint, to identify an endpoint, to provide a secure access or control the devices. It's just not it's one or two information of context, but it's a wide variety of information. Like in case of MDM, right, we have a lot of contextual information attached to the endpoint so that we can identify them and provide the overall access. Yeah, why required ISE? As we mentioned, right? With ISE, you will have the control overall. I mean, complete control of not just securely onboarding the devices before they get connected or got some kind of network access to endpoint, identify them, go through. I mean, securely onboard them, and enroll with the MDM. Even though it's integrated with third party, but you are everything is running on the ISE or going through the ISE, right? So you will have all the information, all the control from the ISE itself. And then, yeah, both admins will have complete control on the devices. They can do multiple MDM actions. And at the same time, user can also manage the devices. They can add the new device, or they can simply mention either stolen or maybe lost, right? Those kind of actions are available for the end users as well. Some of the community resources, the Cisco ISE community, where you can always follow up us there, right? If you have still questions on this webinar or topic, or maybe you want to continue your understanding on this topic, you can always Cisco ISE community is the best place. Other good links like how to use the eval, right? And the integration guides, the compatibility guides, and the license information as well. This is our nice YouTube channel where you can not just find all useful YouTube how to guides, but also all our webinar recordings will be posted here. So please go through this or have a look here. This is very useful resources. Okay, Rigo, do we have any questions?
Yeah, absolutely. And actually, Suresh, if you don't mind, right before we jump to Q&A, I'm just going to take just a quick moment to share the results of the second poll.
Okay.
And as a reminder to the audience, so the question was, which EMM/MDM product do you use? And based on these results, it shows that most of our participants are using MS Intune. So this was our number one
Yeah.
answer. And then for the next up answer, the results show that our participants are using other products. All right, so for questions, let me take a look here. So for our audience, if you do have any questions that you would like to have answered live here by our speaker, please feel free to post them in the Q&A panel and we'll go ahead and take them from there. And let's see what we have here right now. Okay, so we do have this question here. Does ICE have any inbuilt MDM capabilities?
No, I mean, it's all that you will have the device administration like my device portal, right? It has some device control like actions you can perform, but you will get all the MMCAT capabilities by doing integration. Yeah, it doesn't have any inbuilt, but so up to certain point you can definitely control a device, but all the MDM capabilities will be inherited once the integration is done.
Perfect, thank you. And I do see another question here from our audience member. This is, if I have a PEAP SSID, could I use MDM I think it's authorization policy to allow or deny access without having the onboard on devices
Yes,
or onto the
yes.
devices?
Yeah, either you can use PEAP or you can use MSCHAP. Yes, you can definitely use that to onboard the devices. Ultimately, certificates are the best way of connecting the devices. Yeah.
Perfect, thank you so much. Let's see here. Does the full wipe in the device portal require MDM?
Yes. Full wipe is something you will not get from the onboarded devices like for the BOI devices. This is something like MDM action. So through the MDM integration only you will get that full wipe action that you can perform. This is normally an admin action we can say. So yeah, it's an MDM capability.
Perfect, thank you. Let's see, we do have another question here. Are EMM and MDM, are they the same or different? If so, then how?
I can say EMM is something like evolved product from MDM. EMM Enterprise Mobility Manager, right? It has MDM capabilities. Along with that, it can do the app management, right, as well, and other capabilities as well. It's like uh, MDM is like a part of EMM, right? But we can see these two words are uh, can be used as a MDM solution, but EM is much evolved product. It has more capabilities, not just MDM. Yeah, it can do other stuff as well.
Got it, thank you very much. And then in looking at the time here, I think we have time for just one last question. And let me see what else we
Yep.
have. So this one from our audience member, could we provision certificate through Meraki MDM?
Yes. So there are two ways. Either you can provision the certificates through ISE, or you can simply leave that to MDM servers as well to provide the certificates. So both can be done, but both are uh, capable, right? Or can be performed in the solution.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Suresh. All right.
Yep.
So
Those are good questions. Yep.
yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Thank you all to our audience for submitting your questions. Very good ones here. So thank you so much. Um, all right. So with that, we're going to go ahead and wrap up our webinar for today. I want to give a very big thank you to our presenters, Tim and Suresh, for speaking about mobile device management with our audience. I hope that everyone found great value in the information and resources that were shared here today. And I would also like to extend a very big thank you to each and every one of our panelists for lending us a hand with all of the questions throughout the webinar. We really appreciate it. And just a quick reminder to our attendees that you will receive a short pop-up survey as soon as you exit the webinar. And we would be so grateful if you could just take a few minutes to complete it and just let us know how you like today's presentation. We always look forward to receiving your valuable feedback. So thank you so much in advance for participating in that. And again, for those of you who are interested in revisiting this session, we will have the recording available for on-demand viewing within about 5 business days after today. For your reference, I went ahead and posted the link in our in the chat window for the ICE training videos page, and that's where the recording will be located. But just in case you missed it, I'm going to go ahead and post it in the chat window here again in just a moment. But if not, you will also be receiving an email within about 15 minutes that contains that very same link. So please do keep an eye on your inbox for that. Thanks again to our presenters, to our panelists, and to all of our attendees for joining us here live today. I hope that you all enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you.
Thank you.